What would you do if a poor, struggling single father, worn down by life, opened his small, broken door to a strange girl one rainy night, and never knowing she was the daughter of a millionaire? Tonight, you'll hear a story that will touch your heart, remind you of the power of kindness, and prove that sometimes, the most unexpected encounters change lives forever. Daniel was a man who carried the weight of the world on his shoulders. At only 32, he looked much older. Life had been unkind to him. His wife had passed away 3 years earlier after a sudden illness, leaving him alone with his little boy, Ethan, who was just 6. Since then, Daniel worked long hours as a mechanic, barely making enough to cover rent and food. His shoes were worn, his hands always rough with grease, but his heart was gentle. Ethan was his world, and no matter how tired he came home at night, Daniel would still manage to read him a bedtime story, whispering promises that one day, things would get better. It was on a stormy night, as the rain poured down mercilessly, that Daniel's story took a turn he could never have imagined. He had just returned from a long shift, Ethan asleep on the couch because the roof leaked in his tiny bedroom. Daniel placed the bucket under the dripping water when suddenly there was a knock at the door. He frowned. No one visited him at that hour. When he opened it, he found a young woman standing there, drenched from head to toe. Her clothes were expensive but muddied, her hair clung to her pale face, and her eyes carried a mix of fear and exhaustion. "Please," she whispered, her voice trembling. "Yeah, broken bar, I don't have anywhere to go tonight." Daniel hesitated. He had so little already, barely enough for himself and his son, but his heart wouldn't let him turn her away. With a tired smile, he stepped aside. "Come in. You can stay here for the night. It's not much, but it's warm." The girl introduced herself simply as Anna. She didn't explain why she was on the streets, and Daniel didn't pry. He offered her a blanket, some leftover soup, and the corner of the couch. Ethan, half awake, looked at her with curiosity but quickly fell back asleep with his small hand clutching his father's shirt. Through the night, Anna watched how Daniel treated his son with tenderness, with patience, with love so fierce that it softened even the harshest shadows of poverty. She saw how Daniel ignored his own hunger, giving Ethan the bigger portion of food. She noticed how Daniel's eyes glistened with silent worry as he fixed the leaking roof with nothing but duct tape and determination. She felt something stir in her heart, something she hadn't felt in a long time: trust. What Daniel didn't know was that Anna was not just some lost girl. She was the daughter of a powerful millionaire, Mr. Harrison, who owned half the businesses in the city. She had run away that night after an argument with her father. Born into privilege, Anna had grown tired of people who only valued wealth, and she had wanted to see what life was like beyond her golden cage. But she hadn't expected to find herself in the home of a man so poor, yet so rich in love. The next morning, Daniel offered her a simple breakfast of bread, eggs, and coffee. Anna, moved to tears, confessed who she really was. For a moment, Daniel thought it was a joke, but the sincerity in her eyes told him otherwise. He simply nodded. "Doesn't matter who you are. Last night, you were just someone who needed help, and I was glad I could give it." Anna left after thanking him, promising she wouldn't forget his kindness. Daniel assumed he would never see her again. He returned to his daily struggle as of fixing cars, skipping meals, doing everything for Ethan. But a week later, a black limousine pulled up outside his shabby home. Daniel's neighbors stared as Mr. Harrison himself stepped out, accompanied by Anna. Mr. Harrison, a stern man with sharp eyes, looked Daniel up and down. He had heard everything from his daughter, how this poor single dad had taken her in without question, without expecting anything in return. The millionaire extended his hand. "Thank you, broken bar, for protecting my daughter." Daniel shrugged humbly. Anyone would have done the same, but Harrison knew better. Not everyone would. That day, he offered Daniel a job managing one of his auto shops. At first, Daniel resisted, pride telling him not to accept charity, but Anna convinced him. "This isn't charity," she said gently. "It's a chance. Take it off for Ethan." Slowly, Daniel's life began to change. With steady income, he was able to move into a modest but comfortable apartment. Ethan finally had his own warm room without leaks. Daniel worked hard, and soon Harrison trusted him with more responsibility. Through it all, Anna remained in their lives, often visiting, becoming like family. Ethan adored her, and Daniel found himself smiling more whenever she was around. Years later, Daniel realized that one rainy night had rewritten the story of his life. The kindness he had shown without expecting anything in return had opened doors he never thought possible. He had gained not just stability but also love, because Anna, who had once been just a stranger at his door, eventually became much more than that. And so, to anyone listening tonight, remember this: sometimes the smallest act of kindness, even when you have almost nothing to give, can change your destiny. You never know who you are helping, and you never know how that one moment of compassion may come back to bless you in ways you could never dream of.